Okay, and we're back, and we're ready to continue our Web Dev Essentials. So this is the third video. So if you were starting here, there's two before this. You should go through, and you should end up with a hot list tab in your Notepad++ with Notepad++ installed that looks similar to this, and we have a terms tab that looks similar to this that we'll keep expanding on. So we already have A done. Then we came up with the terms, and now we're going to B. So B is obviously going to be get VS Code downloaded and installed. So all we got to do is get our browser open, and that should be in view here. And we're going to go ahead and just put in VS Code. Now I'm using DuckDuckGo. Of course, you don't have to. I mean, you could be using Google, right? Or you could be using DuckDuck, or you could be using Bing, whatever. Either way, you're just going to go VS Code. And one of the first hits that's going to come up is going to be Visual Studio Code, code.visualstudio.com. So this is a Microsoft technology. It is related to Visual Studio. Think of it as more of a lightweight version of Visual Studio. It's VS Code is what we call it. We call it VS Code. And this is an IDE that is very, very powerful for any type of JavaScripting, JSON, HTML, CSS. You know, if you're going to use React and do a JavaScript UI, like a front end with React, a modern front end, you're going to use VS Code. It's the most popular. I mean, it used to be second to IntelliJ's WebStorm back in 2017 or so, and right around summer of 2017, VS Code took over and it became the number one. They got the features up to the point where the community adopted it as this is the top IDE for JavaScripting and all that stuff. So it's the best. So yeah, you want to download it for Windows, like I'm doing here, and you're just gonna start your downloads. And so again, you can either open it right from here, or if you want to go into the downloads folder to see where that is, there it is, and go ahead and get that thing run. You want to accept the agreement that comes up right there. You want to let it go into its installation path. It wants to install it into this user's app data. That's fine. Once start menu folder, that's fine. Go ahead and have it create a desktop icon. You're going to be using this all the time. As far as your Windows extensions, whatever you want. Doesn't hurt to have an open with code. So I would add those also for your right-click context menus and stuff. So why not? And there we go. So I'm doing everything here. Installing her. And here she goes. And this should be the latest version too. They're saying it's 1.95. So cool. And then it wants to launch. Yes, let it launch. And we're essentially done with the browser for now. Get that out of the way. And here we go. So when VS Code first launches, you're going to see a screen similar to this. And let me see if I can just get that into your view. It's going to look like this. And it's asking you about your theming and how you want to configure VS Code. So I do recommend dark theme on VS Code. I also recommend dark theme in Windows, but you know, if you want to go light, there is a light theme. Stay away from the high contrast. This is for usability, like if you have a visual impairment. So these will be way too bright for the average person. Don't use those. So light or dark, I prefer dark. And then you're going to hit next. And it's got a little wizard here to just walk you through some basic configurations. Code with extensions. Extensions are the power up. Browse the popular extensions. We're going to do that next as our own topic, so we're not going to install those here. So I'm not going to check anything here. Build in terminal. Yeah, leave that alone. Install Git. It's got a Git client. Later on for source control. We'll talk about that later. Customize your shortcuts. I mean, it's very, very customizable, and you can go into the settings and change all this stuff. So just letting you know. I'm going to go through and mark that as done. Rich support for all your languages. Let's see, is there anything else we need to really jump into here? There's tutorials that you can watch. I'm not going to run those right now. Code with extensions. They already mentioned that. Okay, done. Are we done here? Done. Okay, we're done. So mark everything is done. That'll get you out of the wizard. And then it defaults to this welcome page. Now this is the page that comes up on startup. You could turn it off here if you don't want it up when you start up. I recommend leaving it on because check it out if I close it. So I'll just file exit to get out. If I open VS Code, which I let it install on the desktop, so I have the icon right there. If I let it open, by default now that it's all set up, you just get the welcome tab, which is cool. Also, there's a navigation bar here on the left. So if you click this first button on the left, that's your Explorer, and that'll pop out on the left, but you can always put it back. And that's how all of these work. So there's your Explorer, here's your search. You can search through files in a project. Here's your source control. You don't need to worry about that right now, but forget later. If running and debugging, no need to worry about that right now. And then down here is going to be extensions, and I do want to talk about that next. So we're going to get into extensions here in a minute. Before we do, to make this startup work really smoothly for you, I'm going to collapse the bar again. You need to create some type of local workspace in order to have yourself organized and know where you're going to be parking your projects. Don't just throw them all over the place. And I don't recommend putting your project folders in My Documents either. So let's just get a Windows Explorer open. So if you go down and hit your Start menu and bring up your programs, you can just type in Explore, and there it is, EXP. It's coming right up. So the File Explorer in Windows, I want to open that program so we can manage our file system. Get this window up here. So let's go set up a local directory, which is going to be known as a workspace. And all developers need to have a local workspace. So off the C drive, the best place to do that is to literally off your C drive, make a workspace folder. That way, if you ever need to get to the root of where all your projects are, they're always going to be in C workspace. See? So if you just create a workspace folder right off the C drive, and you can do that by already have one here, but if I needed to create a new one, I can just right click here and say that I want to do new, right? And there's the folder option. If you don't like the right click context, you have a new button right up here when you're in your Explorer. You can say new, and if I'm in C and I say folder, so same thing as right clicking and doing it, it's going to make that new folder for me. Now, I need to name the folder. So I would name it workspace, but I already have one. So I'm just going to do workspace 2, and that would create my folder. But because I can't do workspace because I already have it. But you would just do workspace and create yours like that. I'm just going to delete the 2 because that was just a demo. So you have workspace off your C drive. If you double click that, means you're in C workspace. This is where your projects should go. You can see I already have some projects in here. But we could create a new project in there in the C workspace and then work from that project. So while we're here, let's just go ahead and do that. Since we're doing this whole topic around the Dev Essentials, right? Calling this Web Dev Essentials, let's use this to make some type of name for the workspace. That would be logical. So I'll say new folder in here under the C workspace is where I'm under, and I'll just call it Web Dev ESS, short for Essentials, and just do it like that. And it'll be Web Dev S, and that can be this little default workspace. Now, what does it have in it? It has nothing in it, but we can add whatever project files we want to it, and we can pretend, well, the project starts here. So we're doing a Web Dev Essential project. This is where it begins. If I go out to this other workspace, there's other projects in here, and they start in their own folders in the workspace. So the workspace is the root of all the projects, and if we go back out to C, then all of our projects are nice and organized under one C workspace directory. That's the whole concept to a workspace. It's having a local set of folder files where you can build out your project files in that one folder. Okay, so now we go back to the Visual Studio Start screen here. It's like, well, do you want a new file? Do you want to open a file? Do you want to open a folder, right? So let's say open a folder. And it's going to say, well, what folder do you want to open? Go to this PC, go to your C drive, right? and you know where I'm going. I'm going into workspace, but not to the root of workspace. I'm going to pick a specific workspace folder. We made one called WebDev S. Let's go ahead and select that and say select folder. And with that selected, it has now opened that local folder. You're going to get this prompt. Do you trust authors of the files? Yes, I'm doing it. It's on my local system. I trust it. Yeah, it's me. So yes, I trust myself. And then I can close the tab. And now, if you're looking in your Explorer over here, you're actually in the WebDevS folder here. There's just no files to show. Okay, hopefully I'm back. It looks like my mic audio is picking back up. Okay. Sorry about that. I threw a little note in there, notepad for you, because I heard the chime and my headset died. I think I heard the chime yesterday, but I forgot to plug it in, so it died in the middle of the session. Anyway, it's plugged in now, so it's charging. So where were we? We were inside of our empty WebDevS workspace folder, and I was saying, well, the reason why you don't see any files here is because there aren't any. So if we want to add a new file to that folder, we can right from here. There's a new file up here, and if you right-click in there, there's a context menu for a new file. I'm a big fan of right-clicking in context menus because it's just so much easier. But if you want to get used to the UI here a little bit, new file, new folder, those are all here. So if I want to say new file, I could go ahead and say, well, we're probably eventually going to have some kind of index or default HTML file. So let's guess it's going to be default.htm and hit enter, and that will create a default HTML file here inside of this WebDev, right? And if we want some folders in here, we can use the new folder option up here and say that we want to have a new folder in here. So let's guess that eventually we might need to have some images. We could create an images folder, and then that becomes its own folder. If we're back into the root again and we want to create another new folder, let's see, maybe eventually we end up with some style sheets and whatnot. So we could create a CSS folder or a styles folder and just have that as another folder in our structure. And then we have this default HTML. So a folder that we might put images in later, styles that we might put style sheets in later, a default HTML. Now we made this as an HTML document, but it's missing the tagging to make it an HTML document. So I'm jumping a little forward here, but if you had some HTML from a previous tutorial that you wanted to paste in, you could do that. If you need to make one from scratch, you could do that as well. You would need to open up the HTML and close it. And look, by just doing an open HTML tag and angle brackets, it automatically created the closing for us. So then I can just return down the line. I have the beginning of an HTML document. But I would need a head in here, right? So let me say head, and it's going to help me close that. Boom, there's my head, right? So I've got my head section now for my document. So I can just have that here. A head's going to have a title in it at least, right? So I'll just go and throw the title in here. Title, and it's going to close it. While we're in here, it's a title, so I'll just say this is the default page. Keep it real generic, and then underneath the header, but before the HTML, so I'm still in this HTML document, right? Which we can expand and collapse these once you create a container tag like HTML or like head that's going to contain other elements. You can then use the UI to expand and collapse those. So also here, I'll do the body. So inside the HTML document, open body. And so the IntelliSense is nice. It's helping you complete the tag. It's closing the tag for you, and it understands that this is a container tag like body that's going to open and close, or like head that's going to open and close. And then if you want to just get some content in the body, I'll just copy what we have for the title here, default page, and I'll say, okay, well, we'll give it a header, give it an H2 header, and put default page in there. That'll put a header into the document, and then if we need a paragraph tag in there for some content, that'll probably be the last thing I'll do for this. Just plain Jane sample, and I'll just say, you know, content here. So that's where you need to put that. And then I'll just save this. So there's a couple ways I can save it. I can do Control S, which is your hotkey for save. I can go up here to File and see that there is a save, which is also Control S, if you didn't know the hotkey for that, and I can save it there. Or I can try to close this. If I close it and it knows that there's changes that have been saved, it's going to prompt me, do you want to save? I'll say, yeah, go ahead and save that. And that means those changes got saved. So if I open that back up, I have the source there. Okay, I'm trying not to move too fast here, but pause the video if you need to catch up to me. You want to have a structure set up like so. You want to have the images folder styles default. And if you're having any doubt what this is looking like in the file system, at any point you can right click on any of these files and you can choose that you want to open them in the File Explorer, Reveal in File Explorer. So if I do that, that's a shortcut to launching your Windows File Explorer and jumping straight into where I'm at. So I wanted to show this default HTML in the File Explorer, so it opened me straight up to C, Workspace, WebDevS into this directory where this file is. And I can see now that if I'm in my workspace, WebDevS has images folder, styles folder, and this one file. There's no secret files or hidden files it's creating here. This is all that's in here. You're creating them by hand. No surprises. It means images is empty because we haven't put any images in there. It means styles is empty because we haven't put any files in there. And the only file we have in the root is default HTML, and it shows that is there. So your same file system is right here, just in this view. And you can always collapse it and get out of the way. Which brings me to the size of the font here. This is not a good size for me. It's too small. A couple ways around that. I could zoom with my control mouse and zoom in. But another thing to do would be just to change the font size in the settings. So how would one do that inside of Visual Studio? VS Code. Well, there's a settings menu you can work with. So if we go up here, edit, let's see, selection. Where do we have the settings? I think they moved them. Hang on, I gotta find them. There should be like a view settings or edit settings. I see appearance here. Where do they move the access to the settings at? Run. That's for debugging. Weird. Do they move into help? Okay, they must have streamlined something. Oh, I'm sorry. So on the big toolbar here down at the bottom, they now have this settings gear. So it's over here. It used to be up in the top menu. I forgot. It's down here in this gear. So down here you have check for updates, you have backups, themes, and then if you go up here, settings, there it is. Boom. So settings is nice. It opens up its own tab. Here's all the settings. You can browse through them manually, or you can just search. So if you're wanting to mess with fonts real quick, you could just put font, and you should filter all the settings by font and not have to jump all around. So there it is. The default font size, 14. That's obviously not working for me. So let's get that up to like 16, see what that looks like. And I think if I just move to another setting and then back, it'll save that. I shouldn't have to close settings. Let me open up my default HTML. Okay, it's a little bigger. Probably a little better for me to see. If I wanted it even bigger, I could go like 18. That might be too big. Let's see. I don't see anything too big there. What other font settings do I have? So font, I put at 18. I'm leaving the default font family, but I could change it. It's going to inherit that as the base font size. Editor on the mini map. I'm not really care to manage that yet. Debug. Debug console is going to be 14. That might be too small. Let's give it 16. Source control. Input font size for messages. I mean, 13 is just too small. Just give me a base of 16 and we'll see where we end up. And for your system, 14 might look great. It really depends on your resolution. I'm using a higher resolution on a wider screen, so for me, 16 seems to be a good starting point. And then if I want something bigger, I'm going to go up to like 18 and stuff. Okay, I'm not really seeing, what's this last one? Markdown. We'll make these 16 as well. Get them all on 16 for now. That's what I'm doing. And if 16 is too big for you, get all yours on 14 or whatever they need to be, whatever they look good for you. This is chat. I don't think I ever used chat in here, but if I did, I didn't know we had a chat in here. Okay. So I think I'm pretty happy with what I've got set up here. My main font, I went ahead and moved to 18. So let me go ahead and close out of there, close out of there. I'll even close the folder. Oops, I closed the whole window. I meant to close the folder and then the window, which you can do separately, but I closed everything. Look, launch VS Code back up, so it's starting with the settings. If I had closed the folder, it wouldn't be open already, but it's remaining open. So let me simulate that. I'll file, close folder. Folder's closed. So if I had it closed and I launched, there's no folder open, so there's nothing currently over here open. So if I go here, it's like, hey, do you want to open a folder? Sure. Or right here off the main menu, which is why you may want to leave this coming up. It's convenient to just go open a folder. Which one? I want to do the one off my C drive, workspace, and then WebDevS. And that puts you back in the folder. So just want to being a little redundant here just to make sure you're comfortable with that so that you can build up how this app is working when you're working on a project, closing that project, and then closing VS Code, maybe even after working on another project, and you come back in. I like to have this menu up here because it's got the recent one, so now I can just jump straight in. It's building this recent list based on what you're working with. So you can have different projects show up under here. Or I can still go to open a folder and go pick it. But now once I have recents built up, see, another reason why this welcome tab works so well, now I'm one click away from it's open. And then I can just turn that off. So that's why I keep it, it allows you to pop through different projects and then get those folders open that you want to focus on for that particular run. So there it is. And there's my HTML. Now your next question might be, well, Steve, we threw this HTML in here. I've got my VS Code in here. I mean, am I going to run that HTML? How do I know this HTML is right? VS Code isn't really going to help you browse the app you're building. It's assuming you're going to use a browser, you're going to publish these to a web server and hit that local dev web server and run them there. So it's not really per se going to be your web server in all cases. It's going to be your web file editor. So if you're wanting to run this HTML and see it, you could just do that from the browser. So you could just go right into your Edge, for example, go up onto the ellipsis menu here, and let's see if we can get a file open going on. If not, we have to put the path in. But I think we could do file open. Do we not have that menu turned on? Or maybe a menu's turned off right now. Let's go into settings. Say menu. Where's my file open menu in here? Okay, I may not have that menu turned on right now in Edge. So I'd have to figure out how to get the file open menu back. I don't want to blow too much time on that. Is it available in Chrome? By default. There's Chrome. Bring this into view. And do I have my file on here? Boy, these modern browsers just don't want you to file open anymore. There's probably a file menu I'd have to turn on for Chrome also. All right, so I'm not having it my way. So instead of file open, let's just do this. Let's just navigate to it. So it's going to be, I think it has to do HTTPC, doesn't it? But that would send an HTTP request to a server, so that's actually not going to work. So it's just going to be C colon, there it is, trying to complete the file C for us. Oh, and then it's going to let us browse. That's easy. Workspace, Web Dev Essentials, default HTML. And now it's rendering this as if it were being served from a server. And if you want to do the same thing in Edge, it should be very similar. If you weren't in Chrome and Edge, if you were just going to go C colon, and here it is, it's trying to help you navigate to your C file. There we go, browse it. Workspace, there we go. Web Dev, there we go. Very similar experience. Because, of course, Edge is wrapping Chromium. So when you're using Edge, you're still using a Chromium-based engine, which is what Chrome uses. So Edge is essentially Chrome under the hood. So there you go. Very similar behavior. And oof, really bright white right now. So yeah, so that just tested that this page actually rendered its title and its little bit of content that we put in it. Okay, so what we want to do next is extensions. Hopefully my headset's going to continue to serve because it's trying to charge while I'm using it and it's not real happy. We'll see. So extensions are what I want to talk about next. I'm going to close this. I'm actually going to do the file close folder and just get out of that project because what we're going to do here next has nothing to do with projects. It has to do with Visual Studio Extensions. So I open the toolbar over here under extensions. So you can easily open and collapse that. And I'll just close the welcome tab for now to get out of our way. So this is the view I'm in VS Code right now. Going back to our list, we've essentially just completed this B here, and now we're moving on to C, the VS Code extensions. Because once you have VS Code installed, you're going to want to get some extensions set up. Did we define extensions over here? We defined the integrated development environment. I don't think we defined extensions. So let me just throw that under there and say extensions. I'll say specifically VS Code extensions. What are they in the terminology? Essentially what these are plugins for the VS Code IDE. So if you think of a plugin for your browser where it allows you to run Flash in your browser or it allows you to run some other type of content in your browser that you wouldn't be able to run before, or have some new tool like a shopping tool in your browser that would help you shop and find discounts that you didn't have before, you should expect similar type of feature add-in when you do a code extension for VS Code. So there's a plugin that enhances it. The community's building them. So Microsoft has built a few, but you're going to see there's a lot made by the community, and there's a lot to choose from. And it's a very popular IDE, so there's a lot. So I want to show you just a few essential ones that I would say I'm always going to use when I set up VS Code no matter what. And then, different teams, different build teams decide to implement different plugins. So you might have a team that has a standard where we use this particular plugin when we're writing our JavaScript or whatever, and that makes the code similar across the team when we use that extension. So you might see some teams dictate what you need to install in your environment as well. But let me just show you off the bat essential ones you're going to want no matter what when you get Visual Studio Code installed. So here in this extensions view is where you can find them. So it's telling me these are the popular ones here. I could collapse that and ignore that if I wanted to. There's a recommended one here. It knows we have Note Plus installed, so it's recommending this. And then the installed, as you can see, is empty Once we install some, we'll have something under installed. So up here is the search, where you can search for your extensions in the extension marketplace. So let's go ahead and search right now for something called Jet Jet. Jet Jet, no space. If you search Jet Jet, you're going to land on Jet Jet theme. This is a really nice theme to have installed for VS Code. So if you select that extension, it's going to load up in a tab a little preview of what this is. And this is the same content you would get if you go out and browse the Visual Studio website, or VS Code website, and you're looking at extensions out there. You're going to see content like this. And so it's just pulling this particular extensions page in to a tab in Visual Studio, VS Code, so you don't have to go out there. But this is what it does. It's a theme. Your JavaScript might look like this on the JetJet theme. Your JavaScript and HTML will not look like this right now without this theme installed. So here's some HTML on this theme. There's JavaScript on this theme. This gives you a preview of, hey, if you like the way that this code's looking under this theme, this is what it would look like if you install it. Great. So how do I get that? I just choose install. I can do it here or I can do it here. And that'll get this install going. Some of these installations will require a restart. This one does not. Once it's installed, it shows you, hey, I have JetJet, I have alternate gray, I have light, I have all these different variants. I'm currently on the dark modern theme. I can switch to JetJet just by picking that from that list, and it's helping me change my theme in VS Code to use JetJet. So if that's installed, which it is now, so if we're looking at extensions, this is one that's actually now installed on our system. Let me get that search cleared so you can see everything. So under installed, this is here now, and that was empty before. Popular is still there, which you could go, browse all this. This is popular is a whole set of extensions trying to help you pick from. And then there's the recommended. So we have one installed now, JetJet. What did that do? Well, if we go to our open folder here and we pull up our workspace, however you want to get back to here, and open up your folder there for WebDevS. Back in our WebDevS project files, we can see that if we open up the default HTML, this is now using the JetJet theme. And it would be more obvious if we did some JavaScripting, but this is what it looks like. So maybe some attributes would help with that. Trying to think of a good attribute I could use right now. None are jumping to mind at the moment on a paragraph tag. I guess there might be an attribute I could use on there. Let's see. I usually move style specifications. I don't do a lot of attributes anymore. Isn't a line an attribute? I think this is valid HTML. Let's see. I could be lying. Let me bring that up. There's a recent path to it. Yeah, that was a valid attribute. The center on the paragraph tag, that worked because it centered my content in it. So that's valid. And you can see this coloring on center. The reason I did that is just to show off a little bit of the JetJet theme. So you can tell that's coming from JetJet. It's a nice bright theme, and honestly, this one might be too bright. So if you go back over extensions and you're looking at JetJet, and you think, hey, this is kind of bright for me, Steve. I don't know. I may not want my JavaScript that bright. That's too bright. Okay, fair enough. That's why I want to give you another one. Another great theme. Go back up here to the search and put in Darkula, D-A-R-K-U-L-A, instead of Dracula, Darkula. There it is, Darkula. Well, guess what you get here? A nice dark theme. It's darker, but it still has its own style as far as the color highlighting of your code. So let's go ahead and install this one. This will give you a second theme. Woo! And it wants to set Darkula up. Go ahead and set it. And now we're in Darkula mode. So now if we go back to our default HTML, oh, this is what it looks like under Darkula. And so you can see you still get some different, it uses yellow for this center attribute on this paragraph tag, but it doesn't use quite the bright yellow. And notice that most of the markup now is completely pink here. So it's a much darker theme than JetJet. So really, if you want a dark theme, if you want a bright theme, and there's tons of other themes out there. So when you're going to go look in the Visual Studio Extension store, you're going to find a lot of choices. Let's just show that store off so that's clear where all this is coming from. I think if we have one of these selected, there's a way we could jump out into the store. Either that or I'll go down to the settings. But let's see here. Click on this marketplace link. There we go. That shot us straight into the marketplace, into themes for code extensions. So this is how you would browse it inside the site. I could go back up to themes using the breadcrumb trail. These are all the themes in the marketplace right here. Well, how did I get even into the marketplace? If I just go to the Visual Studio Code landing section, let's see here. This is an entire Visual Studio marketplace. If I were in the Visual Studio Code site, VS Code, and over here, and I wanted to get to the marketplace on my own, then there's docs, extensions, and boom, that's going to take us right into the extensions marketplace. And this is the top of it. So I could have done all my searches here. I could have said JetJet, and it would be a very similar result set to what you saw from inside of the IDE. See? So it lets you do all that from inside without leaving. If I do Darkula, there we go. And now the next one I want to take you through to install is going to be some icons. So if I just put icons in search, a lot of different icons are going to come up. I like this one here, VS Code icons. There's also, material theme icons. Lots of different icons. You can see what's free. You can see what's popular. There are going to be some paid stuff in here. It doesn't look like there's very many paid for icons, but there might be themes that are premium that you have to pay for. A lot of good stuff's free, though. VS Code icons. I like this. So what happens if we're out here browsing this instead of inside of our extension browser over here? Okay, sorry for the pause. My headset is wanting to shut down. I'm going to keep trucking to finish this. So with the extensions, my point is you could do them here from inside. So if I search for icons, I'm going to get a similar set of results here, and I could find those VS Code icons from in here. But what if I don't want to do it in here? What if I want to do it from out on the main website? Same difference. So here's the icons, here's the install button. What am I getting with this? Here's the preview like you would see. This is the same page that you would view inside of VS Code's extension view. But I'm just doing it here. Install. VS Code is required to install. Yeah, we know we have VS Code installed. Okay, it's trying to do this. Yeah, let it do it. We trust it. And it's going to do that install. And I believe it just completed the install. So, let's see if this one took. We may have to restart our environment for this one to take because it's changing the icons. Let's go ahead and file, close folder so that we're out of our project. And let's also file, close Windows so we're out of VS Code. And I'm going to close the stuff we've got running in the browser too. So I'm kind of back to my desktop and I'm back to my notepad here. I'm going to finish this up. We'll finish this section up here. So let's get VS Code open one more time now that we've installed that icons extension. And let's go ahead and jump into our recent WebDevS, close the welcome tab. And I'm expecting these folders. So I think it's installed, but I don't think it's applied because I'm not seeing the icons I'm expecting to see in here. So let me see if we can get that to install. Go to extensions or to, oh, it's not showing it's installed. So that install didn't work from out on the website for some reason. I wonder why. Well, let's do it from in here. Let's see here. Icons. This is the good one to use. Install. And there we go. VS Code icons. I can select to change the setting to use VS Code icons. and now it should be using it. Could still require a restart though. Let's see. Back to the now the VS Code icons are working. Because see the images folder has a green folder icon, and see the styles has a styles folder icon, and then the default. I could maybe change my UI settings a bit to show these a little bigger. Let's see if I go to settings. Let's see, is there a UI zoom window zoom layout? It's 0 right now. Let me change it to 1 and see if that's dramatic or not. Okay, 1 gives me probably what I want. 2 will probably be huge. That's too big. Go back to 1. So I'm doing a zoom setting here and change the window zoom level to 1. And I'll close that setting for now. 1 lets you see the icons better, see? And I know we're not doing any JavaScript yet, but let's just say, what if I were to add a new file into the root of this? New file. And I made it a JavaScript file. So I'll just say hello world.js instead of HTML. Oh, look at that. With this icon and this being set up with this extension in the project, it recognizes that as a JavaScript file because it sees the .js on there, so it gives it a different icon. So if you were going to write some JavaScript in here, then you know, you're kind of set up with this this icon for this file. I'm not going to put any JavaScript in there. That'll be a rabbit hole I don't want to go down in this video. So anyway, that's what I wanted to get to, is this last section. After you have the VS Code installed, I wanted to walk you through what I consider a couple of essential extensions. So 2 themes and an icon pack. There's a lot more you can do. There's extensions for linting your JavaScript code, and there's all type of extensions you can install for manipulating your code and implementing a certain format of the code and whatnot. So yeah, we'll talk more about those later, but that's really all that's needed for now to get started. And I think I should go ahead and wrap this video up, so before my mic dies again. So yeah, this is plenty long enough. This one was really long, so you might have had to take a break in the middle of it, but we're done now essentially with this list, which means in the next video I need to figure out what else I'm going to add onto this list and what other videos I'm going to make. And then we might revisit some terms, although I did throw in the VS Code extensions because that was the topic we were really focused on this video. Okay, I'm going to stop this video now, and I'll see you in the next one.